Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good.
That's good.
Glad to hear your voice.
It's good to hear yours too.
Good.
It's been good. Yep. It's
Awesome.
it's it's been busy. Been up since early in the morning.
Oh, I can imagine. I've been having the same issue today, so I'm really glad we were able to carve out some time to get together because I know it's crazy on your end as well as mine too.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Absolutely. Especially after coming
All
back
right.
from a weekend trip. So,
Oh yeah, from the holiday, I know it's kind of like everybody takes a little time off before the holiday, you know,
yes.
go or whatever if you're traveling. So then it's like that lag time coming back, getting things back to normal.
Right. Right.
Yep. So I know how that is.
Yes.
Well, I'm really glad that you could join me on my call. We're gonna basically just try to um, address just organic. Sorry about that. That's my little timer. Keeps me straight. But we're going to be talking about fear today,
Yes.
you know. And this is just the reason why I really wanted to talk about it is that this is the thing that pretty much paralyzes a lot of us with moving forward
Mm-hmm.
in our business or sometimes in relationships or
Yes.
um, just life in general. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of it can come down to just being afraid, you know.
Yep.
So, to me, I think it's important that as a coach, that we kind of tackle some of the things that are really pretty much an elephant in the room that people just try to avoid,
Yep.
and just face it and, come up with strategies and techniques so that we can overcome it.
Yes. Well,
So,
I've got a great coach.
oh, you are so sweet. So, we're just going to dive right in, So let's just talk a little bit about, for us to even bring up this type of topic, what is it that you think that, kind of holds people back from even, people want to overcome their fear. But what do you think, just from your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just talking organically because,
Yes.
I had to deal with a lot of this just in my own life, recovering from my own depression and anxiety and stress,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like people know what to do, but they're just, for some reason, it's hard to just go to implement it,
Yes.
so what do you think, is one of the reasons why people just are afraid to just move forward and implement? What is it that you think?
Well, I think it could be for many different reasons. I know for
Mhm.
me, it just has to, you know, do with my growing up. Um,
Okay.
I mean, people have got all kinds of experiences growing up. It's just very different.
Mhm.
Some people were under more peer pressure than other people. Um,
Mhm.
Me, it wasn't quite the peer pressure because I was always the one that was picked on all the time. So,
Okay.
um, I had to go through that all through school and
Mhm.
also at home. And,
Mhm.
it's just been so hard for me because I kind of grew up in negativity because my family was just,
I see.
constantly
Mhm.
negative, and it was
Mhm.
ingrained into my head
R-
from
Okay.
early childhood.
Mhm.
So, it's just one of the things that I deal with. It's still very difficult for me, but I'm trying. I
Right.
don't. I can't really speak for anybody else. I just know that
Mhm.
that's the fears that I have.
Mhm.
You know.
That is just an awesome point because I think a lot of times we have a mindset of, we just think as you grow up, even if you had things go on that were negative,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of don't, um, have compassion or even think that those negative beginnings can affect our adulthood.
No, not until you get there.
Yeah.
And then you
And
realize.
so, yeah. So I think, this is very key to bring up because, if you were to tell somebody, okay, just snap out of it, just give yourself an affirmation,
Mhm.
or, just get around positive people. You know what I'm
Hear it
saying?
all the time.
Yeah, so that's a good way to begin. But, the fact that you brought up that you feel like it was ingrained in you
Hmm.
is something that a lot of people don't really take into consideration.
Right, because a lot of people may have had a very happy childhood, and
Mhm.
they say, you just do those affirmations, stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
do try. I mean, I do the
Mhm.
affirmations. I've um, if it's okay for me to mention another name,
Oh
Bob
yeah,
Sager.
absolutely. Uh-huh.
He is a wonderful person, and he
Mm.
has really helped me. And
Mhm.
he had me journaling, and he's the only one that's ever gotten me to journal.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so he's been awesome. And then of course you've been really awesome.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm seeing a difference.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah.
it
So,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. I was just
Mhm.
going to say that it's just harder for some people than it is for others. And
Mhm.
one thing that I will not do is give up.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, you know,
Now, do you feel like you sometimes go through a little more anxiety with comparing yourself to others? So, like, if somebody gives you a prescription, which is like do a affirmation or start journaling, and if you feel like it's not working for you, how do you handle that? What is your first thought about that?
well, I just keep doing it.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just keep doing it, and to pray.
Okay.
You know,
Okay. Mhm.
I just keep doing the best I can. I'm also, doing a webinar, a 15-week webinar,
Mhm.
with Al Lindemann and Tim Burgess on Think and Grow Rich. And
Mhm.
I'm also learning a lot about that book because, he kind of takes it apart and explains everything, which, really gives me a lot of education about it, about how
Mhm.
rich people, or people who are doing well, should I say, live and think, and, why they're successful.
Mhm. That's good. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
and I think, one of the things that I would say, just, in listening, is the fact that, um, a lot of times we compare ourselves to other people. So it's like, if
Yes.
we're in the same business, if we see them do it, then we think we can do it. But then we forget about our differences.
Yep.
So by that, I mean, um, if you are dealing with a different history and a different past,
Hmm.
when we compare ourselves, when we're thinking we're comparing apples to apples, we really are comparing apples and grapes or apples and oranges. What looks to be the same is a little different.
Yep.
And the reason why that's important is because if you are somewhere a little further behind in terms of positivity based on maybe how your upbringing was,
Hmm.
then a prescription that would work for somebody else who was in a positive environment
Right.
may not have the same impact on the same time scale.
Exactly. And not only that, but people handle fear differently. Something that
Mhm.
can be detrimental to one person might be
Mhm.
nothing for somebody else.
Right.
So it's really hard to be in somebody else's shoes.
Yes, that is an awesome point,
Yep.
So
Hmm.
I think it's really good to kind of have these conversations and kind of reflect because I just know with me having 15 children, for example,
Hmm.
and, still having 11 of them at home, really being able to recognize that each one of them is an individual.
Yep.
Like they'll tell me my older ones feel like their childhood was different than the kids that are in the home now.
Yes.
So everybody's perspective is a little different, and it's good to kind of shed the light on some of the things that we kind of gloss over a lot of times in
Yes.
order for us to make sure that we are living our best life, and then being able to address some things to be able to give to empower others to live their best life.
Right. And, I have been, actually trying to, I'm kind of like a work in progress. I have been trying,
Mhm.
on my own for many, many years.
Mhm.
You know, for instance, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be on this right now.
Well, that's awesome.
I was just so introverted and scared of everything. And
Mhm.
I tried to get out there. I went back to college. It was just a community college, but
Mhm.
and I also had to fight the state because I have a son with Asperger's, as you know.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was, oh my gosh, that was like a 10-year long um, major thing.
Mhm.
And it was just unbelievable. Plus, in the midst of that, we've had a really horrible tragedy, and
Mhm.
so it's just hard. It's like every time you're starting to do well, you get knocked down. It's just like I
Right.
feel like I've been like fighting,
Mhm.
people, all of my
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So never being popular in school, and being told how stupid and ugly,
Mhm.
which I know I'm not, but
Mhm.
kids would constantly say that. And
Mhm.
and then of course when you got parents say you don't have the brain you were born with, then you think, well,
Mhm.
it must be so, right?
Right.
So
Right.
but I know I do have the brains that I was born with.
Amen. Yeah.
I know
Amen.
I'm not
Yeah.
stupid. you know
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
just more shy, and yes, I worry more about rejection than other people. And I am really trying to understand things
Mhm.
from other people's perspective.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah. So that is a very good point. Good things to bring up. And now, so in looking at this, and it's good to go back to the childhood and things like that.
mhm,
And one of the things that somewhat helped me in terms of looking at my past is realizing, what about my past could I have controlled, or what I couldn't have controlled.
mhm,
And when I go back and I reflect, and it's like, I saw things as a victim
mhm.
for a long time, and a victim to me doesn't have any power,
Yep, and that's
you know?
exactly how I've always felt.
Yeah. And so if I decided, I just don't want to be a victim anymore,
Mhm,
I want to be a victor, and so I would always tell my kids, I would say, if you want to do something, be good at it, because people want to hear from people that are successful. So I thought, how can I turn this situation around to where I'm successful with it, you know?
yeah, but how do you handle fear with your business?
Well, one of the things that I've learned is um, when fear comes, fear asks a whole bunch of questions,
Mhm,
or it, like, let's say that I want to build a house.
mhm,
Okay. So I get a piece of land and I want to build a house. Well, fear is going to say, well, who's going to be the electrician? Who's going to do the architecture? How much is that going to cost?
mhm,
All the things will begin to come up, and that's overwhelming. There's
mhm.
no way that I can answer all those questions. But
Right.
it's just, if you don't have a handle on the fear, you'll recognize, you won't recognize that all these things can be answered, but they don't have to be answered at the same time.
Mhm,
Just because fear prompts you to ask a question doesn't mean you have to have the answer or even have a strategy at that time. To
mhm.
me, I use fear to prompt me for action. So, for example, just a serious situation I'm going through right now, which is buying a consignment shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, when I talked to the lady originally, I asked her if she was willing to buy, and she said yes. And so I was like, okay. Um, are you willing to take payments on it, break it up, or whatever like that? And,
Mm-hmm.
normally I wouldn't have asked that. I would have been like, okay, this is her price. I can't afford it. And I asked myself different questions. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, how is this going to work? Does this align with what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Do I see anything past what it is now? Is this something I can grow? Is this something that could benefit me?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help others through it? I asked myself a different set of questions. And so when I did that, it began to spark more creativity. And I asked the question to my husband and to some of my children who I had really wanted them to help me with it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them had their own set of positive reasons why they thought it was good. So anything that I kind of, after being sick and realizing certain things about it really being a lot in my head,
Mm-hmm.
I try to not answer a question if I don't have knowledge about it. So, like, for example, instead of saying, well, a consignment shop, I don't know anything about it. She's asking for this money. I do research so that I can make a informed decision rather than just letting fear stop me from doing anything. Does that make sense?
It does. And, even though fear stops me from doing that,
No, that's okay.
um, even though fear stops me from doing what I,
Mhm.
um, anyways, I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, you said
I,
fear stops you from doing
right.
things that you feel you should be doing?
But I'm not giving up. That's the thing, because
Right.
I know for a fact that what I'm doing, my business, is good and that it can help many people. And
Mhm.
it's just getting people to see that. And it's just, that's one thing I guess I have a really difficult time with.
Right.
um, and there's an acronym for fear, and it's
Mhm.
called false evidence appearing real. And
Right.
and I think what that means to me is that what you're thinking is false. It's just
Right.
false evidence,
Mhm.
and it just appears so real.
Right.
And that's just a really hard thing to get over, because every time I
Mhm.
try, I do the reading, I listen to personal development, and it's just weird. Just that it just keeps coming back,
Right.
punching me.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I had to start small. So,
Hmm.
like, for example, this consignment shop is something that I've grown to, but even in my business, this was a good one. I was doing my business for about a year. I have a marketing background. So,
Hmm.
marketing my business, getting the clients, all that kind of stuff is not anything foreign to me. It's
Right.
not something I feel uncomfortable with. Well, I decided I had so many issues in my own personal life
Hmm.
that I really was overwhelmed with my business. I wanted to do it, but like, I just didn't have any, it was organized chaos to some extent because if somebody gave me an offer to go somewhere
Hmm.
because I enjoyed doing it, I was doing it. So, if I was a TV, somebody asked me for TV, somebody asked me for a podcast, somebody asked me to come and do a live event or,
Hmm.
doing a group session, I was all over it. And, thankfully, the things that I was doing still were in line with my business and everything. But
Hmm.
I just said, I want to be able to work smart. I want to be able to, I don't want my business to grow way beyond what I'm able to scale it to. So I said,
Hmm.
I need a coach. So I reached out to my coach, Camelita, who is in England.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to her on the phone, and she's like, "Okay, well, my fees are $1,000 an hour." And something in me just was like, "Okay." Um, I knew that this was the person that I should have been with,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was just like, "Okay." I just didn't let that fear stop me. I just was like, "Okay, I don't have $1,000. How am I
Uh-huh.
going to raise this money?" So I got a part-time job, started working as a waitress, saved my money up, and what it did for me was it was a big goal for me. Now, $1,000 for some people might not be a lot,
Mm-hmm. It would
but
be to me.
yeah, it just taught me that if I want something bad enough,
Mm-hmm.
then I had to work for it. And now my level of confidence has grown even more because I invested in myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that if I invest in myself, other people, I can feel confident telling people to invest in themselves because I know what I had to go through to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so sometimes it takes us coming up with something big. It could be, hey, I want to do something for $100. It doesn't even have to be, something of that magnitude, but we have to kind of do things in scale with what would take for us as a baby step to do
Mm-hmm.
so that we can keep growing and then get more momentum.
Right. Yep.
Mhm.
I think you probably had more motivation than me. I guess it all depends too on age because
Mhm.
I'm in my early 60s and I'm not
Mhm.
afraid to say that. I'm not
Mhm.
I'm not hung up on old and young.
Mhm.
It sucks getting old, but I'm still
Mhm.
young up here.
I know that's right.
So
It's a
yeah.
blessing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yep. But
But go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead.
I was going to say, so it goes back to the whole thing that when we fear things, nobody knows that we're fearing these things unless we make them real by speaking about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody knows. So if I'm afraid to fly in an airplane,
Mm-hmm.
nobody is going to know unless I tell them and then I start taking action like somebody who's afraid to fly. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pacing or I'm, afraid to get on the plane, I'm sweating and all this kind of stuff. I begin to have physical expression
Yep.
about my fear. But if I go and just didn't sweat, didn't do anything, I could be terrified inside and nobody would know.
Hmm.
So I say that to say that, if it's that much power that we have with our fear, we are really subjecting our power to the fear and allowing it to
Yep.
control us instead of us controlling it.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. You always make
Mhm.
sense. Always.
Yeah. So, we got to sometimes figure out, okay, so how is it that this fear can be more manageable? So, like you say, one of the things with you being passionate about your business,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and understanding that it's a valuable thing.
Yep.
Well, we really get in our own way
Yes, we do.
because, we're like, this is a good product. If it was just us doing the product, we could wear anything we want, but we're just delivering a product to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's important is the product.
Mm-hmm.
But we get in our way and we're like, no, it's what I have on. No, it's what kind of car I'm driving. No, it's how much money I have in the bank. No, it's what color my eyes are. No, it's how old I am. You see what I'm saying? We begin to
Mm-hmm.
do all these things we're focusing on, which is really a distraction from
Mm-hmm.
what the product is that we're providing for people. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think also that people can see that you don't have the self confidence that you should have
Yeah.
as well. So,
Mhm.
when you've been knocked down, for years and years and years, It's very, very hard. I mean, there have been times when I've had great self-confidence. I went back to school,
Mhm.
and also I fought the state for my son, and that was no easy feat. I had to meet a lot of people and go to a lot of
Mhm.
meetings and speak up,
Mhm.
and and I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. So
Mhm.
that was good. But I think
Mhm.
sometimes when it's your own kid, is you just do it.
Right.
I know
Right.
there's a lot of parents that wouldn't, but
Mhm.
it just to me it was just wasn't even a question or
That's
anything.
awesome.
And
Mhm.
the thing with the business is, you have to have a why. And I have a very strong why. It's
Mhm.
very, very strong. But I'm
Mhm.
like, why isn't it really, still just doesn't seem like enough? But there couldn't possibly be a better why than what I have. I know that for a fact.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but I still have a hard time. And uh, it's just going to keep working at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it could be, when we have a why,
Hmm.
um, we kind of want it to be um, loving, inclusive of everybody, just kind of like a utopia
Hmm.
type of why. And in some respects, that's a hard why to accomplish because, it takes all things being good all the time, all the way around.
Yep,
You
that
know
ain't
what
going to
I'm
happen.
saying?
Yeah,
And so, one of the things about that is it's kind of not in our control.
right.
Whereas if we bring a why that's more personable to us, we can do small things that still allow us to um, encourage ourselves and to get that feedback on a regular basis.
Right. It's
So,
supposed to be motivational.
exactly. So, like for example, today um, I didn't even really leave my house. I had all my appointments were here at the house. I didn't, yesterday and the day before I had live events where I was going places and interacting. But I got joy out of today because, my why is to be able to share my story so
Hmm.
that it causes somebody else to feel like they're not by themselves in what they're feeling.
Right.
You
And,
know,
and and you love
go
helping
ahead.
people, you
Yeah.
know. So,
And
and that's what I
so,
like to do.
yeah, so when you do that on a scale, you recognize um, that, we may not be able to see the final product. I could talk to somebody today that, today they're on fire, they get excited, but
Hmm.
I recognize that life happens with people. And so just like we may be able to tackle the world today, tomorrow we might just have all kind of fear. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so knowing what kind of things to attribute our why to is also kind of freeing too, because we can tie it to things that we can control rather than things that we can't control. So for example, if I say I really want to help people,
Hmm.
do that whether I have a coaching client or not,
Right.
because that's part of my why is to help people.
Right.
So if I don't have anything on my calendar and I don't have anywhere to go, no clients, no anything like that, well, then I will call and say, hey, is it okay if I come to the shelter today and talk to the ladies? You
Hmm.
see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, like, if you figure out what it is, like, if you want to help people, how do you want to help them? So that, yeah, you have your business, but if your business is in a point, and this is one of the things with like multi-level marketing or
Hmm.
any kind of service job, it can be feast or famine. Real
Yes.
estate, you might be making $1,000 a day and then next week is crickets, you know.
Right.
So when you have that, if your mission is to help people, being sure that there's a balance between things that still give you that sense of motivation and still allow you to use your gifts to balance out those times so that it's you begin to focus on what your mission is, and you're able to do that daily whether you get paid for it or not. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And even though I have a very strong why,
Mhm.
it is still difficult for me. But my why is I do love helping people. I always have.
Mhm.
And also, I want to get out of debt. Of course,
Mhm.
that's always going to be, in there
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
And I want to be able to help my two boys. I mean, they're both
Mhm.
grown now, and one has
Mhm.
four children, which I absolutely adore, and they are also part of my why. So I can't think of
Mhm.
anything more important than that. And also, a ministry that I'm in called the Underground Connecticut, which
Mhm.
is trying to stop human trafficking, and my part of it is promoting awareness, and
Mhm.
that is something that is very passionate to my heart,
Mhm.
because it's just, to me,
Mhm.
it's just the most horrendous thing that can happen to a child.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
yep,
Mhm.
absolutely, yep.
That's
So,
good.
I know, can you think of a stronger word than that?
That's good. Yeah, so we got to look at it as, you know, those are strong whys, and we got to think about, how are we going to set ourselves up so that we can win every day with
Hmm.
moving forward in our goals. And
Right.
so, you know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it could be something small like, I know for me, I had to build up trust for myself.
Hmm.
Like, when I came home from my last hospitalization,
Uh-oh,
then,
you're cutting out, Lachelle.
you know,
Yes, I can.
okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So when I first
Hmm.
got home from the hospital, I had the desire to not eat meat. And so I was like, I don't know where this is coming from. I just kind of monitored it for like a week or so. And I thought, I just don't have a desire. And so I never wanted to even come out and say, oh, I'm a vegetarian.
Hmm.
I don't eat meat. You know, it took me it was close to a month because I had to make dinner for Thanksgiving. And so
Oh.
it was Thanksgiving Day when, we're a lot of
Hmm.
tradition. I didn't eat meat, and that's when I announced that I was a vegetarian. But during that process, I had not been to eating meat like a month before. And so I had to build trust in myself like, okay, is this a phase
Hmm.
you're going through?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? If I say that I'm a vegetarian, is this something I'm going to stick with? Or am I going to stop doing this like I've
Hmm.
done stuff in the
Yep.
past? You see what I'm saying? And so I didn't really believe in myself. And so I had to do things that I had to start believing in myself so that when I would tell myself
Hmm.
self stuff, I would believe that it could happen.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So I would think maybe some of the things to incorporate, if somebody is listening and they feel like, I can't talk to anybody, or, these fears are so strong, to start out with something
Hmm.
small like, okay, you're going to, every day when you get up, you're going to make
Hmm.
your bed up. So then you begin to be disciplined about something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be that, okay, the first thing you're going to do when you get up after you wash your face is brush your teeth. You're
Hmm.
just going to do it every day, for so long, and then it becomes a habit. Then it's like, okay, this is my routine, because some people feel like they don't even have a routine. So just starting out small, just having something that you do every day that's
Hmm.
part of your routine. So that helped me. So like if people would say, oh, can you meet me or drop me off or something at a certain time, when I began to value my
Hmm.
bedtime, I would say, I'm sorry, I usually am in bed by such and
Hmm.
such time, I just can't do it. So once I started trusting myself a little more, it became easier for me to say no to things or say yes because I saw that it was in line with where I was desiring to go. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
And you also have to, know what your limitations are too, because some people just can't say no. And if that they don't, then they can end
Right.
up getting overwhelmed and, well, end up getting hospitalized like you did because you got overwhelmed. You tried to
Absolutely.
do it all, and
Absolutely.
and not there's no one who can do
Absolutely.
it all. you know.
Mhm. I know, and I was so convicted after this was probably about a year ago that I just realized, Jesus, in terms of
Hmm.
me and my faith, I believe he came to
And I
save the world.
and me
He
too.
died on the
Yep.
cross, right? And he did this for the world and still had
Yep.
12 disciples.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? But here we are. We don't have half the power, discipline, consistency, or anything. And we think we can do everything for ourselves without any
Yeah,
help.
we can't.
So
Yep.
it's really
Yep.
crazy,
We need
you
him to
know?
do that.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm.
Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I think that, it really helps to shed light on, fear and recognizing how it
Hmm.
shows up and, just practical things that, we can do in order to, begin to continue to level up personally and professionally, even though fear is
Yep.
there.
I know I'll get there someday,
Mhm.
slowly but surely, but I'll make it.
Yeah.
I know that the
Mhm.
main thing is not
Mhm.
giving up. You know.
Definitely. You never can
So
give up. That's
yep.
absolutely true.
You have to believe in what you're
Mhm.
doing, and I do. So
Awesome. Yeah, this is
yep.
true.
And
Yeah.
and I
Well,
also thank
great.
you for
Well,
doing this with me
mhm.
as well.
Oh, well, awesome. I'm glad that we were able to get together, and I know it's always challenging to be able to I think it's hard, remove some of these masks, because in society, it's like, oh, you got to always be together and do all this stuff, especially as
Hmm.
women, Um, we have to have it all together, look the part, be the part, say the part. And, these are the things that kind of can really lead to a spiral of stress, anxiety, and,
True.
depression,
And
And so being,
no, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I have a bad habit of that. Um,
Oh, no, you're fine.
um, I just lost my train of thought. It's gone.
Yeah. So, okay. So, just being able to recognize that we have these masks because we think that we're supposed to have all the answers. We're supposed to do everything right.
Hmm.
We're not supposed to show weakness, you know, all these different things, and I really battled with that when I started coaching
Hmm.
because, this was organic thing for me. I wasn't going the business route, uh, making connections that way. I was really on a journey of just being transparent, being my authentic self, and the organic growth and empowerment that came from doing that. It's just unreal, but it's a scary thing to start removing masks,
Yes.
because you've never been on that side before. We have really been conditioned, I
Hmm.
believe, in our society to have
Hmm.
masks and to wear them,
Yeah.
you know.
It's so funny because I think it was last year or the year before we have a women's retreat every year. As a matter of fact, that's this weekend. I'll be going tomorrow to Sunday, and it's a women's retreat. And
Awesome.
actually, that what particular one was about taking off the mask. And
Mhm.
what I was going to say before I forgot is the fact that I guess I'm afraid to take that mask off because all through my life, um, I've always been rejected. So,
Mhm.
to take that mask off, it's just kind of hard, I want to be real with people.
Mhm.
And I believe I'm a really good person. And, but,
Mhm.
I'm just afraid that people are going to see me for, the person, the fearful person that I am.
Right, right.
But I've also been
Yeah.
learning too over, the past year, especially with
Mhm.
you and Bob Sager and Corey
Mhm.
Warfield, uh,
Mhm.
Mike Gogarty, and different people, Karen Cooper, and even
Mhm.
Eunice. I can't pronounce her last name, but um,
Mhm.
there's they all are constantly preaching. Be your authentic self. You're better off,
Mhm.
letting people know exactly who you are because they will trust you better. So,
Mhm.
so I'm trying to do, and people have tried to get me to, maybe do a podcast, and I'm like, ah. But you
It's
got it.
so yeah, it's so awesome because you know, it's like our secrets or masks, they have power over us.
Yes, they do.
They control what we say, how we dress,
How we think.
what we drive. Yeah, all this
Hmm.
stuff. And
Yep.
once you take control back, it's really, and you don't have that second guessing, you
Right.
know. Um, and it's just like you said, it is a process. And
Yep.
it starts with little things.
Yes.
Like I would sometimes not tell my husband no about things because it was like, I just felt an obligation to times rather, what? Maybe I don't feel like it today. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But I would do things when I or whatever
Yeah.
because I just was under that feeling like, well, I don't want him to think I don't love him, or I don't want him to think that
Yeah.
you his attention or whatever. And it's like, but I'm sitting here torn up inside because I'm tired. I really don't
Hmm.
feel like doing it.
Hmm.
And so, then later on, I'm nagging about it. And it's like all I had to do was say no, but I felt like I couldn't say
Hmm.
no, because the mask will hold you hostage.
Hmm.
And so it's best to recognize, hey, okay, there's nothing wrong if I just don't feel like, you know, going to the store.
Right.
Okay, we're just gonna have peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, I could have went to the store and got something, but I didn't feel like it. It was a lazy day. It's sandwich day.
Yep.
But there was a time where that really was a hard thing for me.
Yeah.
I just was convicted. I felt like we should have had 3 square meals and all this. And it's like,
Yeah.
once you are your authentic self and you can be comfortable with who you are,
Hmm.
everybody else, they will fall in line with it. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're having sandwiches. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I'm thinking, oh, they're going to think I'm a bad mom or, this or that because I'm making sandwiches,
Hmm.
you know? So sometimes these fears can cause us to have unrealistic standards. And then it could be even harder for our kids because if we're maintaining these
Hmm.
standards with a mask, our kids feel the pressure of thinking, man, I don't know what I'm doing because if mom did this and she never complained, something's wrong with me. You
Mm.
see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it really can have a negative impact.
Yep. It's amazing how much you have to be
Mhm.
so careful, of what you say and what you do in front of your children, because
Mhm.
it's just amazing how they can just totally misconstrue things. So,
Mhm.
so that could even
Absolutely.
be another fear too. You
Absolutely.
How are you gonna? I'm gonna screw up my kids.
Ex-
But
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. We have people that feel that way
Yep.
also. Well, good. Well, I'm just hoping everybody is able to learn from the fact that and you and I have an age
Mhm.
difference, and it
Nope.
doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your
No.
race, it doesn't matter your belief a lot of
Yep.
time, it doesn't matter what career you're
Hmm.
in. Everybody has some fear.
Yes.
You know, that's just something that's just
Yeah,
universal.
it's human.
And yeah, and so we just have to understand that it can be a slow process, especially based on our relationship with our
Hmm.
past and how, we grew up, and, even sometimes our current
Hmm.
situation, what we're
Hmm.
experiencing, but being able to recognize that sometimes just deciding that you don't want to be afraid is not
Right.
enough. It takes time and practice and patience to be able to undergo a transformation. I tell my kids, I was 46 years old when I decided, hey, this is not going to work the way that I've been doing
Hmm.
things. I'm going to be proactive about my own mental health.
Hmm.
And I can't expect them to learn something in 2 weeks that it took me
Yeah.
46 years
Right.
to learn. You see what
Yep.
I'm saying? And so that's how we have to kind of recognize, hey, it took me a long time, a lot of heartache, a lot of bumping my head, a lot of, experiences for me to really wake up and begin to see what was really
Hmm.
going on.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm. So, well, I just want to thank you again for sharing. I know this is coming out of your comfort
It
zone,
is.
but I really appreciate your, transparency and, being able to help other people, because just the way you're feeling, there are people out there that feel that way
Well, thank
also.
you. I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Having enough
Yeah.
confidence in me to do this. I wouldn't have
Absolutely.
done it if you hadn't asked
Absolutely.
me. And I feel so comfortable with you.
Well, I sure I sure appreciate it. And we've been on this call for like 46
Yes, it's
minutes.
just about 47.
So, it's awesome. And it just feels like it was not even
No,
that
it
long,
doesn't. It doesn't.
so
Yep.
so I really appreciate the insight that you gave everybody, and I'm definitely going to be sure to kind of shout out these people that have been a blessing to you, because
Hmm.
it's important to remember that, even though we water seeds,
Hmm.
we plant seeds, it takes time for a harvest to come out.
Yes.
And so it's encouraging not only for you to be able to have people that have poured into you and helped you along your journey,
Hmm.
but for them to hear that, really motivates them to say, hey, I am doing something right, even though they might have those days to think nobody's listening,
Hmm.
but the impact that we have in other people's lives can be so motivating.
Yes, they can. And I
Mhm.
certainly do
Mhm.
appreciate you and everything that you
Oh.
do. And you've been a godsend to me. And
Oh.
you're amazing. And I'm sure you're going to do very, very well.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And hey, we never gonna give up. We gonna be on that journey with fear. So hey, if we have to keep on calling each other, encouraging each other,
Yep.
that's what we have to do. You know.
Yes. And I'm glad it's with you.
Just have a game plan. That's
Yes.
it.
Yes. I'm so glad that you're in my life.
Good. Oh, well, thank you
You're
so
welcome,
much,
Michelle.
Lisa. Well, I want to thank you again for the
Okay.
call, and I look forward to talking to you
All
soon.
righty. Have a
Okay.
very good night.
Uh, All right.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye.